again, it's Eraani from Stars and Iris with another episode of Don't Go Broke for the Holidays. Today we have another craft episode. Now this episode will be a little different from the previous one, as I did try to choose crafts that are a little more smaller and more accessible to different skill levels. Hopefully this will make it cheaper for you while still making great gifts. In any case, today's focus will be on hobbies. Now, hobbies are a great source of information on any friend or family member to kind of get a better idea of what kind of gift to give them. But at the same time, if you don't know much about the hobby, it can be difficult to know exactly what to get, or it might just be too expensive. Kind of depends on the hobby. Now, if this is an issue for you, hopefully the ideas in this video can help. First one on the list is the gardener. Now, gardening is not a cheap hobby, and those who are gardeners are really invested into it. It's not just their money they're putting in, it's their time and their care. So today's craft will be a mini macrame plant holder for a potential new addition. This idea actually came from a kit by my local library. However, there are plenty of tutorials online for other macrame plant holders, so if this particular craft isn't what you're looking for, be sure to check one of those. Without further ado, let's get started. The materials you're going to need for this craft are yarn, and not very much of it. This one's only about 22 yards, a 2-inch keyring, and a terracotta pot. I happen to find this little starter plant set on a clearance aisle, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. Okay, so first from your yarn, you're going to cut out 4 pieces of string that are each about a yard. And then once you've done that, you're going to take them all and your keyring. First, you're going to go ahead and fold the yarn in half, and then you're going to go ahead and do a slip knot on your keyring. So let's go ahead and do that. Pull through. Okay, first step's done. What you're all gonna do next is separate the yarn into pairs. Okay, so now that we have our group separated, it's time to actually do the macrame. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and take my terracotta pot and put it on the keyring to help weigh it down so that I don't have the whole thing moving around on me while I'm tying my knots. Now the first knot we're going to do is going to be about 6 inches down. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the, on one end, you're going to take the furthest group's right string, my right part of your left, and tie it to a string from the other group that's closest to it. So I'll kind of go like this. 6-inch knots all across here, and then tying the 2 outermost strings together at 6 inches. Let's do it. Okay, so now we have our first rows of knots done. And just so you know, this was the 2 most outer strings in the first row. But so that I can go ahead and do what I need to do, I'm making sure to lay it flat with the original outermost string next to the string over here, so we can still follow the pattern. Now we're going to do another set of knots, 1.5 inches down from these knots. Just do the same method you did before. Okay, our second row of knots is done. And you'll see that again, I knotted the 2 most furthest strings from each other. And so now it is starting to round out the little planter. So the next row we're going to do, which is going to be about, it could either be about a 1/2 inch or a full inch down. You may want to do, instead of flat, you may want to do it with it in 3D, just so you get the right strings together when you're making your next row of knots. Let's get to it. Okay, now that you tied your 3rd row of knots, it's time to fit your pot into the macrame so you can decide where to tie your final knot, which will be at the bottom here. So once you kind of figure out where you want it to sit, just be sure to tie it off right there at the bottom. Once you tie that knot at the bottom, the last thing to do is figure out how much of a tassel you want and cut the ends. And that's it. You have your own little mini macrame planter that you can give to any gardening friend. Now this little holder is great for small starter plant kits, air plants, or if the person you know loves to garden but doesn't have much of a green thumb, you can still buy small fake plants that will help liven their area up. Now for our next craft, we're going to tackle the reader. Books are expensive, even if you're buying them from half-price books. And if you're trying to find books in the thrift store, that can be a lot to sort through to find something a reader might like or that they don't already have. So my solution is to make a book reader with a reading light. Most of these materials actually came from the Dollar Tree, and this craft uses the most rudimentary woodworking skills. Let's get started. The materials that you're going to need for this craft are an easel, and this one has both the dry erase board and the chalkboard. I got this at the Dollar Tree, and it was in the plus section, so it was $3. Also, what I got from Dollar Tree was this mini set of Jenga pieces. I also got from Michael's a couple of pieces of this pine wood. And also from the Dollar Tree, this is a little clip-on spotlight. Other tools you're going to need is a hammer, some small nails that I have in this little hanging set, some sandpaper, and some wood glue. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to take one of those extra pieces of wood and we're going to really measure against the easel to get the approximate length so that we know how much to cut this piece of wood down to. Now I will say I don't have a saw. What I ended up using was a mix between a serrated knife and some kitchen shears to kind of cut the edge down, and then I put it on the edge of my counter and then just push the other end off. So you can do this without a saw. I'm not using really thick wood for this project, which is why I didn't list the saw in the needed material. So if I can do it, you can do it. Next, what we need to do is sand down our edges, especially the piece that I just cut now. That one is definitely rough. And before you really want to proceed with this project, you want to make sure the sides are all smooth so you don't give anyone splinters. So let's get to it. Okay, so now you want to get either a damp towel or a damp cloth, whichever one you have available, and wipe down the extra dust. I am going to try to stain it. You don't have to, but I want to give an extra touch. So I want to make sure there isn't any extra dust from the sanding process that would get in the way of the staining process. It's also why I ended up sending the little tumbling blocks too, because I wanted to be able to get the stain I'm going to use in there, because it doesn't feel like there's a finish on it, but you never know. So a little bit of sanding kind of helps make it easier for it to absorb the color I'm going to use. Okay, so the stain I'm using is actually coffee. I was trying to keep under budget and I didn't want to buy a stain, and we didn't have any at home. I probably could have used paint, but I really do like how the wood grain looks, so I wanted to try to keep that. So I'm attempting to try coffee with this. So I'm going to use a pot, about 2 cups of coffee that I brewed earlier and put in a bowl and I let it cool. And so I'm going to use the rag and dip method. So we'll see how that turns out. 4 coats of my attempted coffee stains later, and it really didn't do much, honestly. It kind of just looks maybe a shade darker. I might have used too light of a roast, or I might not have made a strong pot of coffee. In any case, I spent too much time on that, so we're just going to accept how it turned out and move on. Now, on this piece of wood, and you might have noticed that I went ahead and cut another one, which is slightly bigger than when I had measured it.
And this one, I measured it from the length of the easel, but added a 1/2 inch because I did kind of want an overhang of 1/4 inch on each side. And you'll kind of notice that here. And on this, I drew out where the easel feet are gonna be attached to this platform, and I also drew out where the tumbling pieces are going to be attached as well. What I'm planning to do is use the little small nails to actually nail into the center of these, and because I'm not too sure on how sturdy this wood is, I'm going to nail through this first, and then once the nail's through on the other side, I'm going to actually try to press it or force it in. I don't think that's something I'm going to have to do for the tumbling blocks, mainly because it seems like a pretty decent wood, so I'll probably be able to hammer it in normally on this side. But let's get to it. Okay, and there you are. As I see, I went ahead and nailed through on the pieces I marked out. I did try to nail through for the tumbling tower blocks I was going to use, but I think it was going to be more work, and those pieces aren't as fundamental to the structure. They're more so to try to open the pages, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of weight to them, so I didn't think it was necessary. Now, the next step is to try to fit the feet in the nails with some wood glue, so let's do that. So as you can see, I did manage to get the little piece of wood onto the bottom, and it is wood glued and nailed in. So hopefully once this dry, this will provide a little bit more stability. Now I will say that I was originally using these nails in the wood, but when I was hammering in there, keep in mind this wood is very thin, so there isn't a whole lot of margin for error if the nail starts going crooked or anything like that. And I was having so much trouble with it that I took out the nails and switched them to these small ones. Now they're still attached into the peg of the leg. Obviously not going as further through as a long one like I wanted to, but these made it a lot easier to nail in comparison, which is also why I reinforced it with the wood glue, so hopefully that will stay. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue on the tumbling towers with some hot glue. Okay, so that's done. I decided to glue the blocks towards the front of it so there's a little more room for the actual book. Obviously this isn't going to be for a very thick book. This is probably going to be a little bit more for light reading. You don't have to do this. Depending on how I try it off, I may take them off, so luckily it's only glued on by hot glue. But we're going to move on to the next step, which is going to be attaching the light.
So originally I thought this was a bendable wire attached to this light, but it's actually this plastic base that's allowing the hard plastic of this light to move, so I need this base. Unfortunately, a knife didn't work, but then I managed to find this that my boyfriend kept around the house, which is a multi-tool, and proceeded to use it to slowly break apart the clip until I could go ahead and harvest the platform that I need to make this light work for my holder. And there I am, slowly making progress until I have finally the base separate from it all, and just testing it out to make sure that it does what it needs to do, and just need to sand it down and then attach it to the holder with E6000. Okay, so now that that's over, I decided to review this project, and I decided that these blocks are way too big. They need to be cut down. So using the knife, I scored them, and of course using the newly found multi-tool, I used a little saw feature that it had in there to saw them down, which did take a while, and of course use sandpaper to smooth them out so that they're, safe. But also this size will make sure that these don't block the words on the holder when you're reading a book. It will hold the book, but it won't block it. Now this ledge, it's too thin, so gotta fix that also. How I'm gonna do that is using the discarded piece of wood from earlier and some toothpicks. So I'm gonna use a biscuit method, so I gotta mark out where I'm gonna punch the holes, and then I'm gonna go ahead and cut down this toothpick. What I'm gonna do is put it into one side of the wood, and then it's going to fit snugly into the other side's wood in the hole, and this will create a much sturdier piece versus just simple wood glue, although wood glue is very much necessary in this as well. And now, after all that time and effort,
Here it is. I added some leather on the bottom so it could grip the book a little better. I also added some leather on the back legs so that it wouldn't slide as much. And of course, where I added the light, I added a little leather trim to kind of cover up the glue lines, or glue threads more so. And of course, it lights up. So any reader can have some light when they're reading.
So this took a long time, but it's still pretty cute. And so long as no one's trying to read a dictionary on this, it should hold up. And I do like that there's a writing surface on either side of this holder, so you can either write like where you left off on, or write a go away note for anyone that's trying to interrupt you. However, if this book holder isn't what you're looking for, there's plenty of other online tutorials for different options or just different skill sets, so be sure to check out one of those. On to the next one. This craft is geared towards the artists. Now, again, being an artist, depending on the medium, is not cheap. And even if the medium was somehow affordable, it takes time and dedication for an artist to hone their craft. This particular tutorial is for anyone that likes to watercolor and travel. And I do remember doing something similar to this back in high school, so it's definitely not new, and there's plenty of variations online. However, I will say the materials may surprise you a bit. Let's go. So the materials you're going to need for this craft are a small tin. The one I got is from a very famous mint. I'm not sure if I can say their name or not, so we're just taking some precautions here. Then what else I'm going to be using is one of the blister packages from another popular gum. Although it was a little difficult to find, I managed to find this one at CVS. So if you're having troubles, that's where I got this one. I'm using some watercolor tubes for this project as well. Some watercolor brushes I don't need and I don't mind getting rid of. Something to cut the water brushes down, and some sandpaper also for the water brushes. Let's get started. So for the little tin, you want to make sure that it's nice and clean before you use it for this project. I made sure to wipe it down to get rid of any residue that might have been from the mints. And for the blister package, obviously you just want to make sure that all the peeling plasticky part that's on the top is off and that it's rinsed and dry. Now into the blister package, I'm actually going to fill it up with the watercolor tubes and let them dry. The hardest part honestly was choosing which 8 colors I think should go in the palette, but I think I do have a good basic set, which is good for any artist on the go. Okay, and here it is. I have all my paints poured into the little blister package that I took. Now unfortunately the white paint that I had did dry out, so I just substituted another blue. That's the unfortunate side effects when you don't use your paint. Sometimes they dry out. But other than that, looks pretty good. This does need to dry out before you can give it to your recipient, but once it does, all they need to do is put some water in and activate it like any old watercolor set. So moving on to the next step. Take your brushes and measure it against the tin because you need to see how much of the extra wood you're going to need to cut off for them to fit in. So just figure that measurement out, and then it's time to use the tool, whatever cutting instrument you have that can cut through wood, to trim them down. Let's get to it. Okay, now the brushes have been cut down to size and they fit perfectly now in the tin. Now it's just time to go ahead and sand those edges so it's a little smoother. Okay, now once these are nice and smooth, that's pretty much it. I decided to be a little extra and cut some extra watercolor paper I had down that would fit into this little tin. And you can add the brushes on top of that. And there you have it. You have a to-go watering color kit, perfect for any artist when inspiration strikes in the outdoors. Artistry on the go. Love that idea. Now this was affordable to me because I already had the watercolor paints, the extra brushes, and the watercolor paper. You might be able to find these items at an affordable price at Walmart or dollar store, or you can use a different medium. You can use color pencils, you can do pastels, or anything else you might have extra of or can cheaply buy. Moving on. This next craft is for the chef. Now, chefs can be a little difficult to buy for because they usually have all the spices and tools that they need, and appliances can be pricey. So what do? Well, chefs, although they love to try new recipes out, also have standby or inherited recipes that they rely on. So this craft is to help any chef in your life store their tried and true recipes. Here's what you need. So materials for this project are a recipe type box that I got at Michael's. It was about $6 to $8, but I did get a discount on it. But you really just need a box that's big enough to hold index size cards that you can put recipe on. This one happened to have a bit of a metal clasp, which I thought was really nice. In this project, I'm also going to be using more of the tumbling tower blocks. And we're also going to be using sandpaper, wood glue, some acrylic paint, and obviously some paintbrushes. So what we're going to do next is it's time to sand down our edges for a smoother finish. Okay, and just like before, get a damp rag or paper towel and wipe off the excess dust from the sanding. Now I am going to paint the inside as well, so I also sanded the inside. I kind of forgot about it while I was recording, so I did it in between recording. Okay, next we're going to paint. And I don't know if you noticed some of the paint splatters there, but I had a little bit of a mess when I started pouring my paint out onto my paper plate. But alas. Now I am just using plain old acrylic paint and phthalo blue in particular because the gift recipient for this favorite color is blue. Awesome choice, of course. And I'm starting with painting the inside. That way when I start painting the outside, I'm not making more of a mess by needing to paint the inside first or having to wait for that to dry before I can get the inside finished. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and I'm also going to go ahead and paint the tumbling block pieces in blue as well. So I'll see you on the other side. So as you saw, I tried to paint this recipe card box blue, but then I found that my recipient's favorite color was not blue, so I had to change that. So that meant that I had to sand down or try to sand off as much of the color blue as I could, but there was still quite a bit on there. So I had to use the white acrylic paint that I had to kind of mute the color so that the next color I chose, which their favorite color was green, would show. And unfortunately, I think because there were so many coats, I had a lot of problems with this. So then I had to change it up to spray paint, which meant I had to take off these hinges and sandpaper it again and spray paint outside. It does look a lot better though. Okay, and after all of that, I finally have this box painted. So don't make the same mistake I do. Actually make sure your recipient's color choice or choose a neutral color that won't have to be drastically changed, so you don't have to go through all the process to correct it like I did. Of course, I also painted these, which we need for our next step, because what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make a handle on this, but not just any handle. I specifically chose these tumbling blocks because when they're placed together, not only will it be a handle, but it also be a little recipe card holder. So I'm going to use some glue to attach it. But just a heads up, since I changed my plan from using acrylic paint to spray paint, unfortunately this wood glue isn't going to really bond very well. Mainly because wood glue really needs to be bonded with the wood fibers to really have a very strong bond. And of course, although acrylic glue is fine because it's water-based, and many of the websites I looked at said it's fine if your wood is painted with acrylic, which is why I was going to go with the wood glue, I use spray paint, and that's oil-based, so that's not going to work anymore. So I need something a little bit stronger. So I'm going to go ahead and use E6000. You could also use Gorilla Glue, but this one is technically cheaper. So if you are going to go on the way of spray paint like I had to, I would go with E6000 just because it's going to be slightly easier on your budget. So let's get to it. And there you have it. This project is all done. The tumbling blocks have been glued down with the E6000 and now it is the perfect handle plus card holder for this recipe card box, perfect for any chef in your life. This came out a whole lot better than I thought it was going to, especially after going through all that painting hassle. Now, I will say that you can definitely decorate this much more. You can write recipes on it. You can put your recipient's family crest on it. Pretty much any way you think they might like it. My recipient might be watching this video, so we're going to keep that a secret. Now, I will say if you want to go above and beyond, you can print out blank recipe cards on cardstock to help your chef get started on their collection. Also, keep in mind, if you are going to go in the way of acrylic paint like I originally intended, you are going to need a sealer to finish off the wood. That was my original plan until I had to switch to spray paint. However, certain sealers are pricey. So depending on your budget, you may want to go ahead and just do spray paint from the get-go or a stain instead. Just do whatever works for you and your budget. Okay, so for our last craft, we are making something for the movie/binge watcher. Now, I know that's a bit of a stretch of a hobby. However, I do believe we all know someone in our lives that falls into that category. It might be us for all we know. But getting someone a subscription to a streaming app, movie card membership, or even a bunch of DVDs and Blu-rays may not be feasible, or they may already have it. Depends on the person, really. However, what any movie watcher and binge watcher would definitely enjoy are snacks. After all, what's a movie experience without popcorn, drinks, and candy? So we're going to make a gift box with all the goodies that the binge watcher in your life will enjoy. Don't worry about skill set on this, by the way. Anyone can do this. Honestly, the hardest part of this was part of me just choosing what to put in the gift box. So let's get to it. Stores like Dollar Tree tend to have a lot of affordable snacks and treats for your recipient's box. They're definitely one place to consider when making any gift box, as they're very affordable.
So these are the items that I chose for my gift. I got the popcorn, the candy, and the chocolates at the Dollar Tree. And then I got the drinks over at Walmart because they were 76 cents. And I also decided to go ahead and get a fleece throw from Walmart. This was about $3.30 at Walmart. It wasn't too expensive, but I always think that when you're binge watching or watching a movie, that's always nice to kind of cuddle up with a blanket. So I decided to go that route. If you don't want a blanket or you don't think your recipient will like a blanket, you could always just substitute more snacks in. But I decided to go for it anyway. Now, the other thing you're going to need is a box. You don't have to get, you can get a box over at the Dollar Tree and some cellophane as well, or even a basket. But I had plenty of boxes at home, boots that my boyfriend had bought for work and everything, and I had wrapping paper, so I decided to save myself a couple of bucks. And of course, if you are going the route I am and just reusing a box, you're gonna need some tissue paper or just some old paper that you can use for stuffing. Now, the most challenging part of this craft, if you can call it a craft, arranging the items in your basket, your box, or your bucket to fit. So let's get started. And I am just stuffing some extra paper in right now to kind of give it that full feeling. That might have been a little too much, so let's fix that. And also just because, in case this gets jostled around, I don't want everything to go astray. But yeah, looks like everything fits. That's pretty much it. All to do now is just make sure that you can close it up. And voila! See, I told you that was easy. Honestly, I can't imagine anyone who wouldn't love this gift.
It's absolutely perfect for any binge watching experience. Also, this gift box idea is pretty versatile. You can make a spa gift box, you can make a board game gift box, whatever. Pretty much, so long as you can find the contents at an affordable price, you can whip up a decent gift box for nearly anyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for everyone who watched, and if you want to see more videos, please like and subscribe on YouTube, or you can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Now, there's only going to be one more episode left in this particular series, and the next episode, just a little hint, is going to be completely in my wheelhouse. Yes, I said that again. Anyway, that's enough from me. I hope you all have a good day, and I will see you next time. Bye!